Hi everyone, welcome to or back to my channel, Mel KB Vlogs. One time I was at an audition. God, I cannot believe I'm about to tell you guys this. So today we are going to do a sit-down Q&A video, and many of you asked me some juicy questions, so I have my questions here on my iPad and we're gonna go through them. Some of them are like hot takes on the industry. I'm gonna get super honest here. You guys know that's my thing. I really am not a fan of sugarcoating things. I also am generally a pretty positive person, so I don't know, I think I have a unique perspective of the musical theater industry. So stay tuned to hear my answers for some of these, because a few had me be like, do I answer that? But we're gonna answer them. There are also some more chill questions sprinkled throughout that are more about me and my life, or just finding out more information about the industry. So let's get into it. Okay. The first question is, what are some things that I would change about the industry? And that is such a hard question, because honestly there are so many things I would change about the industry, but I'm trying to think of just one or two. I think right now something I would change about the industry is that it currently feels like a big gate or door that you have to like bust through to get in. And I just wish that things were a lot more transparent. I wish that we could have an even more open communication between casting, agents, and actors, because I think we all deserve to know what's going on, and I think a lot of times things can feel very like secretive and I don't know, exclusive, where from talking to people who were on Broadway back in like the 70s, 80s, it wasn't necessarily like that. But I think now, because there are so many more people in the industry trying to break in, you kind of like have to build those walls. So I don't know, I think ultimately I wish that the industry was a lot more transparent with all of the people we can be communicating with. And I think that would make actors feel a lot more in control of their careers, because there's not too much that we can be doing to like gain the amount of control that a lot of us want. Does that make sense? I hope it does. What are some unwritten rules about auditioning? There's a lot. I think like the unwritten rules of like how to act when you get to the audition studios. Kind of one of the unwritten rules is like to feel out the energy of the people you're sitting by. If it is your friends or like acquaintances, like always be respectful that we all are still doing a job interview, and although it can feel very fun and like, oh, it's social hour, it's like an unwritten rule that don't really try to like gab with people unless you're feeling that energy that they also want to. Or you could straight up say like, oh, I'll leave you alone, I know you need to prepare for your audition. Sometimes people will say that to me and I'm like, oh no, actually like I prefer just to chat because it keeps my mind off of it, or vice versa. Sometimes I'm like, thank you, yeah, I really need to go over these lines. So like feel out the energy of the people around you, and don't be afraid to just say like, would you rather I move over here? I want to like make sure you're good for your audition. Stuff like that. I think that's a big unwritten rule. Ooh, another unwritten rule like about dance calls, which I think a lot of dancers who are used to New York City dance classes get this, but I think if you're coming from somewhere else for the first time and you're like not fully in the community, if you're in a dance call and like everybody kind of staggers themselves throughout the room. But if you're kind of somewhere in the middle and you're trying to see the choreographer, don't be like jumping side to side and keep switching where you're staggering to see. If your spot isn't a good spot where you have to keep doing that, just like move back into the side more, like switch your spot, because if you're going like this, trying to see, then the people behind you are like, oh god, now I have to move this way. Now I have to move this way because that girl's moving. That happens more often than you would think. Also, this isn't really unwritten. I think it's kind of written. But if the choreographer says to switch lines, so usually you have like a few lines that everybody's learning, and then they say, okay, switch lines, so the people in the back get a chance to learn something from the front. Please switch the lines, because I've seen people not do that. And yeah, don't be that person. How do you narrow down what to audition for? Ultimately, it comes to like knowing your skill set and the kind of shows that you generally go in for. So I try to go in for as much as I can that I think I am potentially right for, but I don't really waste my time at auditions where, say, it's like, it seems like it's more of like a very strong hip hop, like pop lock kind of stuff. Like, I can do hip hop, but I can't do all of that advanced stuff in a lot of shows lately. They've been asking for that. I'm not going to go to that audition because I'm not who you're looking for. Things like that. So you kind of just know your skill set, and basically in the auditions, it'll usually have a breakdown and it'll say like, seeking ensemble dancers who sing well, who can do XYZ. And I always just check, do I feel like I align with this? Yes. And if I do, I usually go, because I'm trying to be seen for as much as I possibly can. This one, so many people don't want to answer this question, and you can actually find the answer easily online in some ways, but somebody said, how much money did you actually make on cruise ships? So when I first started out with my first company, which was 2016, I think I was making like $850 a week. I was a dancer singer, and then I moved to a different company a few years later, and I forget what my starting salary was, but I just ended getting paid $1,100 a week to be a singer dancer. So that was $1,100 a week. I still had to pay my agent 10%, and I could have all 3 meals of the day provided for me on the ship, and I didn't have to pay to live there, so that was free. So I basically got to pocket $1,100 every week, although I enjoyed getting off the ship and getting food and stuff, so I did spend money on that. But I think that's a pretty good deal when you're not really having to pay for much. Worst audition experience. I have a really good one, and I'm about to like fully call myself out, and it is so embarrassing, and we are just gonna keep it between me and the YouTubers. Okay, you guys? So one time I was at an audition. God, I cannot believe I'm about to tell you guys this. I was at an audition, and the choreographer is known to do very physically demanding choreography. He is shorter, so he can like move very quickly, and for somebody with long legs like me, it's a little hard, and it's very like cardio heavy. So I went to this audition. I was actually with a ton of my friends. It was an invited audition. So we go, we learn the combination, and it ended with a giant turn sequence that, like, the whole combination leading up to it, you were like catching your breath. And then it ended with this crazy turn sequence and a big pose. And I remember we were doing it in our groups of 4, and we went the first time, so they have you do it twice, and you like switch lines in your group of 4. So we did it the first time, and while we were doing the turn sequence, I was like, I think I'm gonna be sick. Like, I started getting the sweats. Like, I didn't know what was gonna happen. But I was like seeing stars, literally fighting for my life. And then we switch lines and we do it again, and I'm just like, okay, Mel, you can do it, just get through this and then you can leave the room. So we like go to do it a second time and we start to do the turn sequence, and I was like, I gotta go. So I continued to turn. We were doing like PK turns, and I PK turned straight out the door, ran. I like pushed I was like, I gotta go, and I like threw open the door, and luckily there was a bathroom right there, and I made it. But that was one of the most embarrassing things that has ever happened, and I try not to audition for that choreographer because I'm genuinely scared that that will happen again from like sense memory. So that's my worst audition experience. God. I actually talked to some auditioners this week though, and so many of them were like, oh my god, I had a moment like that, and they were sharing theirs. So at least I'm not the only one, but yikes, that was stressful. Do you watch other theater vloggers? This one is one of the ones I was like, I don't know if I want to answer this. So there are, I don't really watch many on YouTube. The one person I watch is my friend Paige, who I'll link her in the bio, but she is a fellow cruise ship performer and I just love her videos. She is an amazing cinematographer and editor, and I really appreciate her videos, so follow her. And she very similarly shares honest takes and views of her life as a cruise ship performer, so I really like her. But the reason I don't follow or watch a lot of other YouTube or theater vloggers is because I've noticed that a lot of them either have like a very curated, aesthetically pleasing, like, I don't know, almost, I don't want to say fake, but like just curated videos showing certain things about theater, and if they don't want to be sharing very personal things or like negative things, that is fine, because not everybody wants to do that. That's fine, but that's not really something I want to watch because I want to see like what's real. And then along with that, there are a few, and by a few I mean like actually a good amount of theater vloggers out there who really deceive their audiences. A lot of them make their audiences believe that they are auditioning for certain really big things when they're not, or they share like a weekly vlog where they like leave out huge chunks of things where I'm like, well, you didn't share that part, that's like dishonest. I don't know, and it's people that I've like seen in real life, or I know what is going on in the industry, and I'm like, that is not really true. So I don't know, and it's frustrating because these people who make more like fake content or curated content, they get a lot more views, and I think it's because things seem a lot more like glamorous, or I don't know. So it does, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, like it frustrates me because I'm like, why can't I get that amount of following? But at the end of the day, I want to stick to who I am and share just like raw, real things about this business. Also, some other people just show like the highlights of their life, which again, that is fine. Like, I don't have any personal beef with those people. I have beef with the people who are like lying. But yeah, I'm just not really interested in seeing people who only show the good. I want to see like the whole human, you know? I'm sorry if that sounds kind of bratty. I don't think it does. You guys will get what I mean. How to prep for the industry as a college student. I want to take this more as like prepping mentally for the industry. I think watching like my videos to give you an idea of what to expect, like financially, all of that, I think is a great way to prep. Another way is to like start researching casting directors. Get used to going on playbill.com/jobs to see what's auditioning. Even if you can't go to any of these, start making it a habit to look and then read the listings, see which casting agencies are casting which shows, get an idea of what they're usually asking for at these auditions. Just start to like immerse yourself in the industry so that when you come, you're not as shocked. And then I think another great way to prepare is if you have like alumni from your college who have moved here, reach out to them and say like, oh hey, can you show me the audition studios when I moved to the city? Can you give me the rundown of how this works or how this works? If you don't have any people like that you know, my DMs are always open. I love to help people who are moving here, give them the rundown, tell them what is like currently happening and how to do things. So shoot me a message, but if you have somebody else in your life, go for it. I think that's a great way to just be prepared. And yeah, I think the general stuff of like, know that the training never stops. So even when you graduate college, immerse yourself in training here. Find that voice teacher, get into dance classes, create a community, do all those things so that you don't feel like a complete outsider. How do you keep your voice healthy for shows or auditions? I do a lot of things. I have something called the vocal mist. It's like a little nebulizer, and kind of through this whole audition season, I've been using it every day. It helps to clear out if you have any like chest congestion. It really helps with that. It's like these small particles of moisture. It helps your cords stay nice and moist. It's just really good for your vocal health. I usually always have tea before bed, or I always pick up a tea on the way to an audition, so that with honey, lots of honey, so I'm like, have a nice warm beverage. Eating well will help, like having anti-inflammatory meals, just providing your body with good nutrients also helps your vocal cords, because it basically like how your body feels will affect your vocal cords. And honestly, being in voice lessons helps me keep my voice healthy because I always have somebody to talk to of like, hey, this is going on, what should I do? And she gives me advice. And it also keeps my technique up to par and stuff like that, so that I'm not like slowly falling off my technique. I drink a ton of water before I have coffee in the morning. I drink like half of this guy and I continue to drink water throughout the day. I will say auditions in New York is rough when it comes to vocal health because it's freezing. There are always so many sicknesses going around, so it's really hard, and you just have to listen to your body and stay on top of it. I always have like a nice warm scarf around my neck to keep everything warm on my way to the auditions. Yeah, it's a full-time job, baby. How well should a musical theater singer be able to pick up choreography? I think these days the expectations every year just go higher and higher, and I do think that the expectation for singers to pick up choreography is not as high as the expectation is for dancers, but it's pretty equal. Similarly to for dancers, it's expected for you to pick up vocal harmonies fairly quickly, or if you're taught them one day, to have them perfect the next. Same with dance for performers or for singers. I think if you're in an audition setting, it'll really help if they say, she's a great singer and wow, look at her pick up that choreography. So it can only help. And I just think nowadays, again, the expectations get higher and higher. So the better that you can be at picking up everything, whether it's vocal stuff or dance stuff or even learning lines, it's gonna help you. This is a spicy one. Do you think that theater industry actually cares about mental health, or is it just a talking point? I think it depends on who in the theater industry. I think a lot of actors genuinely care about mental health. I think there are some casting directors out there who genuinely care. Like, I've been in audition situations where I'm like, I can tell that they care about me as a human as well as me as a performer. Same with theaters, the producers of theaters, where I've also been in situations where I'm like, they really don't care. They just want you to be a little robot and do your job and go home. But I do think that the conversations that are happening more often of like, we are full, well-rounded people who have feelings, and also the work that we do is emotionally difficult, like stepping into certain characters' shoes, you know, putting yourself there emotionally, it's very hard. So I think the more people talk about it, the more normalized it's getting, but I think we have a long way to go. I did recently listen to a podcast. It is called the Stage Combat Podcast, and it shines a light on things that have happened in the theater industry where actors really were not looked after, and it's very eye-opening to see the issues that are still happening. So give that a listen if you want to like dive more into that topic. Where did I find my writing job, which is my day job? I write for a food publication. I found that job through originally on, I think it was like Indeed or LinkedIn, but it is a big company that hires freelance writers for a ton of different publications. I applied to them years ago and they asked for an interview, and I was actually flying to a cruise ship contract when they asked for the interview, so I wasn't able to do it. And then like a year and a half later, I had a friend who's also a writer. She posted on Instagram and was like, hey, my company is hiring and I can refer people. If you are a writer and you have a portfolio, let me know. So I replied to her, found out it was that same company. So she referred me, they asked me for another interview, I went through the whole interview process, and then I was hired. So it's technically still freelance, I'm not salaried, but I also was able to build a portfolio through other like random freelance things, just doing things for very little money or no money. I even wrote little articles on my own website just to send in to show that I can do content writing. If that's something you're interested in, I actually started a theater publication. It is called The Rehearsal Room. You can go to therehearsalroompublication.com, and that is a place that I have created for other theater artists to write content so that they could apply to jobs like mine and have a portfolio, but also as a place for artists to express themselves and other people to read it and create a community talking about all things theater. So check that out. One of the questions was, would you consider moving to the suburbs for journalism and make theater a hobby? I think if I ever stop theater, I wouldn't really continue it as a hobby because I'm very much an all or nothing type of person. But I've never really said this out loud on the internet, but I don't plan on auditioning and doing all of this for a long time. I think I have a couple years left in me, depending on where my career goes, but I also have a lot of other interests and dreams, and honestly, just doing all of this can be super exhausting. And I think at some point I'm going to want to live maybe a more chill life where I don't have so much pressure on myself all the time. So once I run out of that steam and I'm not feeling this like intense pull that I do right now, and I'm like enjoying myself right now, I love how my life is, but I know it's not always going to be like that. So I'm kind of open to a lot of different things. Maybe I'll go more down a journalism path. I've considered maybe going abroad to get my master's in something. Who the heck knows what? I've also considered going into casting one day, which is something I feel really passionate about. But I need to learn more about the realistic life of being a casting director. So that is something, I have a door open for that. My brain's always thinking. But for now, we are 100% in the theater game, and maybe one day we'll go down a different path. Who knows? Last question, which I love. was somebody said, I know you talked about your dream of being on a morning TV show, like a talk show. Would you ever interview your friends, fellow performers, things like that? And yes, that is something I've been thinking about a lot. Tell me if you guys would like to see that. I've been working on an idea about that recently. So definitely something I would love to do, and I would very much make it like a morning show, talk show vibe, chatting with either my friends on Broadway or friends auditioning or some choreographers, directors, people like that, and just chatting and getting the tea from them. I think I would love that, and that would help to make my dream of being a talk show host come true, just doing it myself. So I think that'd be cool. Okay, that is all the questions. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it so much. I hope you liked my honest takes on the industry, and I hope that I gave you a little bit of insight on things you were wondering about. Make sure, if this is your first time seeing my videos, I usually do weekly vlogs showing myself auditioning and what it's like to be an equity actor in New York City. So if you want to check out my vlogs, they're lots of fun, and I will see you next week for another weekly vlog.